And welcome to another episode of Time Out with Doc and Caveman. As always, you are here with Dr. Fantasy and the Fantasy Caveman. We have quite the packed agenda today. I don't know what was in the air this week, but a lot of news in the NBA. We're going to talk about JB Bickerstaff's comments on sports gambling, the G League Ignite, the All-Star Game, Adam Silver, once again talking about the All-Star Game. I feel like we've talked about the All-Star Game every single week in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to talk a little bit about the genius that is Paul Pierce, the Clippers and the Rockets, and I think that's it. So let's kick it off with my favorite topic, sports gambling. So JB Bickerstaff earlier last week made some comments in regards to how sports betting is changing the landscape of sports, and obviously in this context, the NBA. So a few comments that he made in regards to just fans threatening him and fans kind of heckling him in the stands as the Cavaliers have been playing. So one comment, they got my telephone number and were sending me crazy messages about where I live and my kids and all that stuff. So it is a dangerous game and a fine line that we're walking for sure. He also added it brings added pressure. It brings a distraction to the game that can be difficult for players, coaches, referees, everybody that's involved in it. And I think that we really need to be careful with how close we let it get to the game and the security of the people who are involved in it. Then, probably the last interesting quote, there's no doubt about it that it's crossed the line. The amount of times where I'm standing up there and we have a 10-point lead and the spread is 11 and people are yelling at me to leave guys in the game so that we can cover the spread, it's ridiculous. So, Caveman, I don't think you're much of a sports bettor, but what do you think about what he had to say about sports betting?
Yeah. I dabble. I have a little bit of money in my FanDuel account, so I might dabble a little bit, in that sense. But I mean, who? This isn't like new to. This isn't anything new. I mean, you're talking about like with added pressure, like there's so many things that are pressures for players and coaches and whatnot. I don't think this is any different. You don't think like players after a bad game get death threats and all sorts of stuff, crazy stuff like it's the same. You have a bad game and you're getting death threats and all that stuff, and I don't really. It just comes off as like he's trying to build excuses, and it's just I don't I don't get it. I mean, there's so many distractions for what maybe they should just not allow players to go out, keep them in the hotel
That's a good idea.
until it's time to go to the game. Then they go straight from the arena to the bus or the plane to go to the next city, and stay in the hotel. Like there's distractions everywhere. Like it is the only thing I'll say, like in sort of defense to him, it is kind of crazy how now we're talking about like sports books at the actual arenas
Hmm.
that they're playing. I mean, he's right in the sense that it's as close as it's ever been, but I don't really view that as a negative. I just view that as kind of like an enhancement of the fan experience. It's just, it's just part of the game. It's just, it comes with it comes with the territory of being a coach. It comes with the territory of being an athlete. It's just, it's just how things are.
Yeah, and as somebody who has signed up for 18 sportsbook and has been banned from 4 of them, I feel very uniquely qualified to discuss this, and that is not an exaggeration. I make some pretty decent money sports betting, but yeah, there's a few layers to this. The first one is maybe JB Bickerstaff, this is going to sound really harsh, but maybe he needs to check his mentality a little bit, because if drunk Fred in the third row yelling at him is bothering him, then maybe you need to check yourself, because that's a little, who cares if they're yelling at you to leave guys in? Like, if you're feeling pressure from a drunk fan who put $20 on the spread, then I think you have some inner looking that you need to do. So, I mean, I do agree, like, there's lots of pressures. If this is even top of mind for him, that's insane to me. I mean, it really is. And now, in terms of his family being threatened and, things crossing the line that way, obviously that's, not okay. And they do need to keep that in the back of their mind. But yeah, overall, it's not going to change. I mean, even though gambling and sports betting is becoming more and more legalized across the US, and it's only going to continue to do so over the next decade or so. I mean, fantasy sports has been going on and has been popular for about 20 years now. And that's just a different kind of sports betting. And yeah, it hasn't necessarily been, well, yeah, I mean, it has been legal because it's been deemed more of a, not gambling as much of as a game of skill. They've classified it that there is skill in fantasy sports, so legally it's not considered gambling. But I mean, either way, like, it is gambling. It has been happening for 20 years. We've seen guys like Austin Eckler who really like own it and love being a part of it, and he's like, "I'm sorry I let you guys down," or when he has a big game, he's like, "That was for my fantasy managers." I like when guys do that. I think it's highly entertaining, and I think people need to embrace it, because if anything, it's bringing more eyes, more attention, and more
Yeah,
money to the
exactly. Yeah.
NBA. So it's a business. It's bringing in more money. People need to chill, though. If you're yelling at JB Bickerstaff, maybe I'll yell at him, actually. Are they coming to Indiana anytime soon? I'm going to yell something at him to see if I can
You should do it.
get.
You should do it, man. You should go. And I mean, yeah, I mean, you don't want, and just to make my point about like he's coaches aren't the only ones that, like, this is gonna sound like, it's what him getting death threats is okay, because it's not. But at the same time, it's like, this isn't he's not the only one getting, they don't talk about it every time, but you hear very often, players get threats of their own against them when they have a bad game. This
For sure.
not even in regards to sports betting. They just have a bad game in general. And they get so, like, that is sad, I guess, but that's just part of the territory.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's a high pressure position, and if you can't cut it, then move on, buddy. Yeah, and also, we were messaging beforehand, and we'll bring it up. This just happened, like, I don't know, maybe an hour before we started recording, but Jonte Porter of the Toronto Raptors is sitting out now tonight, and who knows how long. They're doing an investigation because there was some irregular prop bets placed on him, which feels offensive, because what they're saying is, who would bet a lot of money on Jonte Porter, right? Except himself. Maybe I was just really feeling like Jonte Porter was going to have a good game, and I wanted to put 50 grand on it, but no. So it's going to continue to become a problem. And we see the cloudiness around Ohtani and what's going on with him right now. We saw Calvin Ridley get suspended. So we're right around the corner probably from seeing a massive scandal. Ohtani, whether he did it or not, it's going to get covered up because he brings a lot of money to MLB internationally. There's no way no one's touching Ohtani. That's just the reality of it all. But yeah, I think we're right around the corner from a big scandal too, if we're being honest about it. It's just going to become more and more of an issue, and eventually it's going to impact a Super Bowl or the World Series. Maybe we're looking at another Black Sox scandal over 100 years later. So I think that'll be interesting to monitor as well.
Yeah, and that's that is a downside of, this getting more popular, is when we're gonna see more of these things, like with Porter, and no offense to Jonte Porter, but I don't even know if I knew who he was prior to this news coming out.
That's disrespectful.
I mean, it might be. I mean, I don't know. He is on the Raptors, and the Raptors don't have very many memorable players this season. But yeah, I mean, I think what the NBA is gonna do is, because this is the first, like, as far as I can recall, like the first like NBA player that this is happening to, as far as I can remember. But I think they're gonna try to make an example out of him, just to try to dissuade this kind of stuff now. Which is what makes the stuff with Ohtani interesting, because if this happened to, let's say, like LeBron or something,
Yeah.
or Steph Curry, like 99% sure that he'd get the they'd get the Ohtani treatment.
Oh, sure.
That he's getting, so, but being, as no offense to Jonte Porter, being the fact that this is almost a nobody, I think they're gonna really make an example out of him. Assuming, because this is the weird, like, this is like, looking into it, like, so there's a game on January 26th against the Clippers, right? The people bet the under on the prop bets for him. It was 5.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists. And there's also an over under for Porter's made threes at 0.5. And then he played just 4 minutes before leaving the game. What the Raptors said was a reactivation of an eye injury. Okay, so this is a weird situation. And that's basically the case with both of these games that are under investigation right now with him. I mean, this is like, does the team have anything to do with this? You might want to start looking into, like, playing 2 games where he mysteriously only played a few minutes and didn't return, and he was the biggest profit, the prop bets for that night. It's just I'm interested to see what comes of this investigation.
Yeah, I mean, TBD, I guess we'll see what happens. There hasn't been a ton of information on it. I think the reality is that this is happening a lot in sports. It's just whether or not you get caught. If we're being honest about it, that's just how I feel with scandal. And when people say, "Oh, the NFL is rigged," and so, I believe that all of that is true to an extent. When there's that much money on the line in anything, people tend to get greedy. People tend to be corrupt, and I don't think sports is any different. For some reason, we think that's the case, but it's not.
You see, there's that one video of, like, going around to, like, it was like the refs were talking. They were like, I had this defense, but he had their quarterback, and there's just like, it just went to. I'm gonna show you that video later, but it just goes to, like, show, like, this goes deeper. This definitely goes deeper than Jonte Porter in these 2 games specifically. I think there's gonna be a lot more that comes out about this.
I mean, my conspiracy now is that he was involved in Denver Nuggets winning the championship last year, and that was rigged because Michael Porter is his brother. So that's my new theory. Yeah, that's my new theory. So that's enough on gambling. That was a lot of gambling talk. Not that I hate that. Maybe we should just keep talking about it, actually. But we're gonna move on to the G League Ignite. we talked about the G League Ignite maybe about a month ago or so now. It was around the All-Star game. They were kind of on the hot seat with NIL deals becoming more and more popular at the college level. There was really no reason for the G League Ignite to stick around anymore. So the announcement was made that it is officially folding after this season. It really doesn't have much of an impact. I don't think anybody or any big stars were committed to it for next year. So I really think it's not going to have much of an impact. It makes sense. We talked about it before. The problem that it was looking to solve, where basically it was giving players the opportunity to make a little bit of money prior to going to the NBA, is now solved with NIL. So, any other thoughts on this?
Yeah. I think it had a good run, and Scoot Henderson, who arguably one of the best players come out of the G League Ignite. I mean, he basically had comments saying that he understands why it's ending, and he said, from my viewpoint, they helped me in a huge way to where I am right now. So I think, that it did its job. It, like you said, it had its purpose of giving players a way to make a living until they made it to the NBA, and it served its purpose. And for their final season, they do have. I do believe they have a couple of guys that are going to be picked in this upcoming draft. So they have. So it's worked again even in this final season. But the reality of the situation is they are 2-30, and last among teams in point differential at minus 15.1. And also, beyond the fact that there's NIL now, I just don't think it's like it's a basketball team. It's just a bunch of guys coming with the goal of making it to the NBA, and I think it's ran its course.
Yeah, I agree, and I believe there's the biggest prospect. He's supposed to go in the top 5 is Bazulis, who has been pretty solid this year. I think they're projected to have one other guy going like the lottery. So even still, yeah, there's been some successes. We haven't seen any of those alumni find a ton of success in the league yet. We'll talk about one of them a little later on who's been catching fire as of recently, but no long-term success. I was reading some articles with people debating like whether or not it actually prepared them better for the NBA. Yeah, if you play at a top end Division I college program, or you playing a higher level of competition, I think their record kind of says it all, doesn't it? If it was such easy competition, then why aren't they winning more games? That seems like a pretty simple argument to make right there. So I don't know if I agree with it. And even that's disrespectful to the other guys in the G League, because even though they might not be in the NBA, these were guys who were stars on their college teams a lot of times. So I don't think I agree with that. But
yeah, and that's also kind of also what's Anderson spoke in a little bit of length about his just overall experience in the G League. He mentioned that, we're going up against guys that this is what they do for a living. Like, and this is how they, like, feed their families and stuff, and this is kind of what they do. A lot of these players that play in the G League are never going to make it to the NBA, so a lot of these guys, have something to prove, and it's just tough when you got a team of guys that, like, they have a good chance there. And, but,
Yeah, no, I think it's fair to say that assessment overall is kind of crazy, but just another thing to bring up about the Ignite and the G League. The only thing you can say is the G League attendance is pretty poor. So I guess if you play at a major college program, you're probably playing in front of more people. So maybe that's the only thing you can say that's a little different. But yeah, that's it on the G League Ignite. Let's move over to the All-Star game as Caveman tries to stop sounding like he lives in a cave with his audio. Uh, but so let's go to the All-Star game. The commissioner Adam Silver reached out, had a press conference or an interview on CNN recently where he was talking about the All-Star game a little bit, and his most probably memorable comment from that, he said, "I think maybe as opposed to trying to create a super competitive basketball game, which I am not sure the teams or the players really want, we should do different things and make it a celebration of basketball." And he talked about maybe bringing back like the US versus the world kind of game, talking about bringing more events like Steph Curry versus Sabrina Ionescu to the table and just creating more of a fun environment and maybe potentially ditching the All-Star game altogether, just finding a different way to format it, which is a big change of tune from Adam Silver, who I think like me wants to see a super competitive game, but in the position that he's in, you can't force it. That's just the reality. You can have the greatest talent in the world, and we can say, hey, back in the 90s with Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, these guys were going hard. But the reality is the players now don't want to do it. Teams are worried about players coming out of it injured. So you got to make it an enjoyable experience for the players and something fans want to watch still. I think that's the important thing. I think the All-Star game to watch is terrible. But that's because they're trying to format it as a game. Like if you made it more laid back. Like I enjoyed the dunk contest. I enjoyed 3-point contest. If you find a way to just change it up a little bit so it's not a traditional game, I think there's some merit to it there.
Yeah. Oh, is my audio better now?
Yeah, you sound good now.
God. Well, I'll have to look into that. I guess I don't know what. I took the earbuds out, so I think that now that my computer updated, it sucks. I don't
That's
know.
great.
So but yeah, I mean you hit a lot of points. I mean, I think I'm among the minority, like the extreme minority at this point it seems. I don't mind the All-Star game.
I know.
I love I'm sorry, I have fun, seeing, like Steph lobbing it up to Giannis and all that kind of stuff. And see guys that are probably never gonna play together on the same team. That like to me that's to see just the guy people having fun and to see guys paired up that'll never realistically ever be on the same team. I think that's kind of exciting. Now, I mean, Adam Silver did talk about, well, maybe you can add more money, but we honestly don't see that happening because it'd take a lot of money for these players who make a lot of money to for that to be enough to keep them interested. I mean, the USA versus international idea is something, and I think that's definitely something that's going to get a long look going forward. I think that could be interesting, but then again, I think we might end up being in the same boat as we're in now. So, I mean, me, I don't see a problem, but I get why people have a problem with it. But so I think what's ultimately going to end up happening, I don't know if it's going to be as soon as next year. I think they're gonna. If I had to bet, I think they're gonna give this international Team USA versus international thing a try because I think they wanna. I don't think they're ready to like throw in the towel on like an actual game.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So I don't think that. I think eventually, like even like a couple years down the road, I could see, there not being like a game, but I don't think they're ready to give up on like having an actual game. So I think that like the USA versus international thing, and it would also give a little bit more exposure to international players, and bring in some more people from out of market, overseas and whatnot. So I think that's a logical next step for them, is to look at that kind of format.
Yeah, I personally still like my idea of having like a 3-on-3 half-court tournament. I still think that would be cool. You would get to see these guys play together in a more casual way. So I think it solves a lot of problems personally. And Adam Silver should somehow listen to this, because I still think it's a good idea. The other thing that just came to my mind, I think it would be semi-interesting if somehow you could get like the top 20 NBA prospects together to play a game. I think that would be kind of a cool way to introduce the league to some of the guys that are coming in. They would probably have a little bit of an incentive to play harder too in a big spotlight like that. So if you're trying to add a competitive nature, I think that could be kind of interesting as well. But that was just a random idea off the top of my head. Yeah, that's the NBA All-Star Game. I think it's changed every year for the last like 10 years now, and I think it's going to continue to do that until they find a good formula, and I don't necessarily hate that. I actually was in the minority too, where they did I don't know if you remember, but I think it was 1 or 2 seasons, they did a 1-on-1 tournament, which is the same concept as the 3-on-3 tournament, but I actually kind of like that. They played like outside on like a concrete court. It looked like they were just at a playground, and I thought that was cool. I think I remember like Kevin Durant being in it, and anyway, I didn't hate that. So I think they should build off of things like that. Next we have Paul Pierce. I don't remember exactly what you said to me when you sent this to me and messaged me. Something like he's a moron, or so I feel like I'm not even going to start or say anything. I'm just going to let you say your piece here and talk about Paul Pierce.
Okay. So there's two things with Paul Pierce, right? So the first thing, which is not the thing that I was referring to, is that talking about he thinks, and I actually might agree with him on this one. I want to see what I really want to hear what you think about this. But he said that Steph Curry has had a greater impact on the game than LeBron and Michael Jordan. Now, I love Steph Curry. All right, I love Golden State. I love Steph, but it's hard to get behind now. Now, no doubt that Steph Curry has changed the way the game's been played. Like people are just chucking up threes, and even Paul Pierce said it when in his reasoning. He watched the Celtics game the other day, and the first 10 shots in the game were 3-pointers. Like, so in that way, Steph's changed the game, but like Michael Jordan is the face of basketball.
Maybe the face of sports.
Maybe the face of sports. And LeBron, no offense to Steph, but LeBron's the poster athlete of this generation. So it's like, are we really saying that Steph's had more of a impact on the game than those two? I mean, I don't know if I can necessarily get behind that. What do you think?
Well, there's 2 layers to this. One, the Michael Jordan comparison, or him having a bigger impact, that's ridiculous. That one, let's just throw that out there. That is stupid. That's insanity. That's crazy. Not only just what Michael Jordan did on the court as being maybe the greatest basketball player of all time, but when you look at, and I'm a business guy, so maybe I'm biased here, but when you look at like the business of sports, I mean, no one has had a greater influence on the sports industry than Michael Jordan. When you look at endorsement deals and the way that like clothing and apparel and everybody has their own shoe, like he started that. And when you look at guys having all of these TV deals and being in commercials and athletes being kind of the face of marketing and marketing themselves and using their brand to make money, he started all of
Yeah.
that. When we talk about, if you want to like say something that hasn't been said out loud, NIL is here because of the foundation that Michael Jordan set. I've never heard anyone say that, but I think that's true.
You got
honestly.
something there. You got something.
I think so. I'm gonna say put that everywhere because I just came up with that off the top of my head, and that makes a lot of sense. But it's just the reality. Making money off of your brand in sports was created by Michael Jordan. And maybe I'm sure there was somebody that did it before him, but he popularized it. It wasn't like mainstream to do that, and he made it mainstream to make money off your brand. So that's ridiculous. I can see the argument against LeBron, though, if we're being honest about it. And it's not to say like Steph Curry's a better player. It's not to say that their basketball careers, Steph Curry's had a better basketball career. But when you ask, like, how has LeBron changed the sport? How has he changed sports? I don't know if he has, if we're being honest about it. Like Steph Curry, you can say without doubt, and you just said it, has changed the game of basketball, making it more 3-point dominant. You have kids growing up saying they want to play like Steph Curry. And I know people probably say that about LeBron too, but I don't see like the impact or the change that LeBron has created. Maybe making flopping more popular. Is that his positive contribution to the game? No, but I don't know. Like I'm always open for a counterpoint that anybody has, but I haven't heard one where I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I just feel like the way that the game has changed when they both retire, Steph Curry will have a longer lasting impact than LeBron.
Yeah, I think to a lesser extent, LeBron's kind of, shown. I think the biggest thing with him, would be like his charitable contributions. I mean, there's probably nobody in the game of basketball that has like done more like for communities than LeBron. I think that's kind of, I mean, beyond the fact that the longevity play with him, and we've been talking. Already been talking about. Last week we talked about anybody being able to pass him in points, let alone eclipse like 40K. Like, the ability. I mean, to just take care of your body and be able to play for that long. I think like when you talk about what's a successful career, part of that is how long can you be at the top of your game, and LeBron's the reason for that conversation. I really feel LeBron has sparked the conversation of when your career is said and done, what's more important? Individual accolades or championships? Like, because he's done both, and it's like I think that's kind of yeah. I mean, I see the argument, at least, with the Jordan one, like you said, that's utterly ridiculous. But with LeBron versus Steph in terms of impact, I can definitely I can see it both ways.
I'm so proud of you.
But the reason, and you kicked off with it, the reason that I called Paul Pierce an idiot was the comments he made regarding arguably the MVP frontrunner, he said that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder is not yet a superstar. What the hell is he talking about? Now, I don't know. And his reasoning is even dumber. His reasoning is because the Thunder aren't on national TV every week.
Oh, that's not even true.
And it's not even true anymore. And he's not in the commercials. Hold up. No offense to him, but Chris Paul is in commercials. We see Chris Paul in commercials all the time. Are we saying that Chris Paul is a superstar right now?
Yes.
Apparently.
I just saw Robin and Brooke Lopez in a State Farm commercial.
That's not the judge. That's not the parameters we use to define a superstar. Like, it's just his reasoning is just stupid. I mean, we've been talking about Shai, it seems like every week, that we've been doing this because we've been talking about, basketball and the best players in basketball and the MVP race and whatnot. Like, he's like 1,000% a superstar. Like he's definitely entered that realm of players, and it's just. And he also said that, and this is funny, James Harden is still a bigger superstar than him. Hold up now.
What?
James Harden is a bigger superstar right now than Shai. I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, make sense of this.
Well, Paul Pierce has a lot of brain damage. Yeah, the comment about TV commercials is kind of weird. I mean, there's lots of superstars. I mean, have we ever seen Jokic in a TV commercial? I don't think so. So is he not a superstar now because of that? I mean, but it does bring up a semi-interesting conversation. Like, what is the definition of a superstar? So, like, we talked about Paul Banchero last week, I believe it was, and like, we agree. I think he's not a superstar, but probably next year he's going to find himself right in that conversation of being a superstar caliber player. So it's like, what is the definition at the end of the day? I was like, I Googled it one day after you sent this to me, and I was like, I don't know. Like, I feel like we all need to agree on what is the definition of a superstar so we don't have to argue about it. And most people define it as the face of the team or the best player on a team that can win a championship. I mean, that sounds a lot like Shai. This is going to be a second year in a row averaging 30 points. I mean, I could kind of see if you wanted to argue with me that he was debatably not a superstar yet because he needed to do it longer. I mean, I'd listen to you. I don't think that I would agree with it, but I'd at least hear you out because it really has only been 2 years probably of him being just a next level superstar. But he's on one of the top teams in the entire league in the MVP race, 2 consecutive 30-point seasons. Like, I think we're past the like, I don't know how many people would even argue with you that he is not a superstar. So
Paul Pierce.
I guess Paul Pierce. Yeah. I mean, James Harden is. I mean, I have trouble calling James Harden a star level player now. And that sounds really disrespectful, but to me, still a star level player is like, are you one of the 2 best players on a championship team? A lot of people, I looked this up to define a star player as anyone who's made an all-star game in the last 3 years. So I don't know if that's true, James Harden. It probably is. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of crazy. I thought you were talking about too. He mentioned a few days ago that Kevin Durant is better than LeBron too? I thought you were gonna bring that up.
Well, I wasn't going to touch that.
I
But,
mean, over the course of their careers, Kevin Durant does average more points per game. So.
oh, yeah, that's as much as I love scoring. I definitely think there's more that goes into that. But just like Shai, look, we've been talking like he's averaging 31, 6 and 6, shooting 54% from the field. Like there's not even he's arguably the MVP this season, depending on how the Western Conference shakes up. But it's like that's just not it. That just sounds like just being a hater for the sake of being a hater. That's kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah, probably is. Well, this transitions to we were going back and forth on which one was gonna go last, but I guess since James Harden came up, we'll just transition into the Clippers. So, a few different things with the Clippers. I didn't know about this weird James Harden Kawhi thing until you included it on what you wanted to talk about tonight. And then I watched the video and I was like, what did I just watch? I was truly like I watched it like 3 times probably before I fully processed it, and it was only like a 20-second video, but this is essentially what happened. James Harden is bringing the ball up court. Kawhi is behind the 3-point line to his left. He's like wide open, and James Harden passes it over to a wide open Kawhi Leonard. And then as soon as he passes it to him, he runs towards Kawhi Leonard and like pretends to block it. So he's basically, and just to be clear, they're on the same team. So he essentially tried to block Kawhi's 3-point attempt that would have been wide open. Kawhi did miss it. The Clippers got the rebound. James Harden then assisted it to Amir Coffey on the other side, who made a wide open 3. But yeah, it was kind of weird. After the game, James Harden was like, yeah, so basically he said that the team has been in a fog as of the last few weeks, and he thought it would be something lighthearted to do to like bring the team together. Mike, if that doesn't say James Harden is not a leader, I'm not sure what does. If he thinks that blocking your teammate, and I mean, to be fair, they were up by like 24 points or something like that against the Trailblazers, and it wasn't the most competitive game, but still, it's kind of disrespectful to Trailblazers if we're being honest about it, and it's just weird overall.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a bit weird, but at the same time, I understand where he's coming from and his reasoning. I mean, we'll talk. We're gonna kind of we're gonna kind of talk about him next with this Clippers topic with Russell Westbrook being out. But they've been in a bit of a funk recently. It seems like I think this Russell Westbrook injury has definitely played a part in it. So I think all he was doing was trying to kind of like loosen them up, and no disrespect to the Trailblazers, but if they were playing like the Nuggets, I'm pretty sure that James Harden wouldn't be doing this.
That is disrespectful.
But that's the reality. And in the end, they did end up getting the 3-point basket.
They did, yeah. Same result, I guess.
They did end up getting it. So, like, I don't have a problem with it, personally. Especially when you add in the fact that James Harden has overall been doing really well for him this season in his role. That's like okay, you have. I mean, they had to do something. I mean, they were in a funk, and you gotta try to lift the spirits, somehow, I guess. So I think that was. I will say it's definitely a very unique situation, because I don't know if I've ever seen this before.
I mean, James Harden has never really been considered a leader, and I guess that's his leadership style is weird. Um, so yeah, but the Clippers are going to be most likely getting the rejuvenation that they need here in the next week. Russell Westbrook's expected to come back and the next week as well. So, that obviously has a big impact on not only them, but just the entire Western Conference picture. So, what do you think this means to the Clippers and for the West as a whole?
This is it. Westbrook's a piece of this puzzle. I think, him back certainly helps them, but it's all about the bigger picture with the Clippers, and if everybody can stay healthy. You saw them reeling with Russell Westbrook out, and he is arguably their their number 4 option this season.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, and they were reeling a bit with him out. If we're talking, what happens, at the end of the season or in the first round of the playoffs, and Kawhi or Paul George or, Harden goes down or Westbrook goes down again for that matter. I mean, I think, and that's part of what makes them so frustrating is that they have all this talent, like individual talent, but you take away one piece of that and they're not good anymore. You just take away one piece and so
Yeah.
I think that's what I mean. It's great that Westbrook's back, but now it's like, can they all stay healthy for this run?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where they're going to make the playoffs. They're probably going to avoid the play-in tournament at this point. I mean, they can still fall out technically, but probably not going to happen at this point, especially with them starting to get healthy. It just feels like the kind of thing where their season doesn't start until the playoffs do. I don't think anybody really doubted throughout the year, like, oh, the Clippers going to make the playoffs. Like, most people thought the Clippers were a playoff team. They've been playing like a playoff team. I mean, they have to shine during the playoffs. That's the reality here. So they're getting healthy at the right time, but they still got another 3 months they have to stay healthy, and I don't think there's many people that are willing to say that that's going to be the case confidently, which is fair, honestly, at this point. So, let's stay in the Western Conference. We'll end it off here then with the Houston Rockets, who have been on a little bit of a tear. They're on an 8-game winning streak right now. They're only 1 game behind the Golden State Warriors to be in the play-in tournament. So, what do you think? You think they're actually a threat to make it in the play-in tournament, or you think this is fluky? What do you think about this Rockets surge here?
I mean, with this recent surge, I remember, and this is kind of, it's kind of I wouldn't say a humbling, say like a humbling moment for me, because I remember last week I was talking like saying we shouldn't spend too much time on the Rockets.
I tried to bring them up, and you basically just smacked me in the mouth.
But now we're talking, I mean, now I think it's really, it's a coin flip at this point, in my opinion, whether it's going to be. Now, I think I think the Lakers are going to stay in the play-in. I mean, they have a 3.5, so they could still realistically fall too, but I really think it's going to be a coin flip now between Golden State and Houston, who gets that 10th spot. And I mean, that you got to be, because the Golden State's reeling a bit. They lost 2 in a row now. They're 4-6 in their last 10, while Houston's 9-1. So the Warriors could not be in a much worse position than they are in right now. I mean, they do have their they do control their own destiny, so they can take care of their own business. But if we're looking at the Rockets' upcoming schedule, it's not ideal. I mean, they have a game versus Portland tonight, but then they're at the Thunder, they're at the Jazz, they're at Dallas, they're at Timberwolves, and then they host Golden State, and then they host Miami, and then they're at Dallas again. They host the Magic. This is a rough. They got it. Now is when we're talking. This is a tough schedule coming up for Houston. So they really, this is really gonna show us, are they actually ready, to make a push, and get into this play-in tournament and possibly make some noise. I mean, this is where we're gonna find out. I mean, not so much versus the Trailblazers. That would be kind of funny if their hot streak ended with a loss to Portland, but so they, a couple games versus the Thunder, game versus Golden State, a couple versus Minnesota. This is really gonna show us, are the Rockets really ready for a push here?
Yeah, and you bring up a good point with the schedule. Looking at just some of the teams competing in the play-in tournament, the schedule overall is fairly interesting. The Suns have the hardest strength of schedule of any team remaining. Every single game they have left to play is against a playoff team except one. So it's really tough for the Suns. The Kings are actually number 3 with the hardest schedule. The Pelicans with the 4th toughest schedule. So a lot of these teams competing right now have a really tough road ahead of them. You mentioned the Warriors are towards the bottom. They have the 25th, so the 7th easiest or the 6th easiest schedule.
Yeah,
it looks like.
They play the Hornets and the Spurs
and the Trailblazers and the Jazz twice. The Golden State, that is.
So if you're Golden State, you can't ask for a much better of a, to try to right the ship and fend off Houston. You have a super easy schedule. Well, not super easy, but you have a relatively easy schedule, definitely compared to theirs. So, they have, I mean, coming up, not ideal. They have 2 road games versus Miami and Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
So, and who knows, they play, is that tonight they play? No, it's tomorrow night they're in Miami. But if Houston wins tonight, assuming they do, and Golden State loses, to Miami, I mean, I don't know who has like the tiebreaker between Golden State and Houston. It does go by conference record, right?
Yeah, and the Warriors have a losing conference record.
Jesus.
19 and 24. The Rockets are 23 and 19.
So yeah, I'm almost certain that Houston's gonna have the tiebreaker versus it. Would have so we get to be talking about it as soon as tomorrow. Houston being in that 10 spot, Golden State on the outside looking in, but that's kind of like the biggest right. And this is here. I feel like every week until the season's over, we could definitely take a look at like just the overall play-in and where everybody is in the standing. It's going to be completely different. Like, I think pretty sure that, wasn't it last week when we did this, Phoenix was in the play-in and Sacramento was the 6th.
Yeah,
and
the
now
Kings
they
fell
flipped.
out. Yeah. Mhm.
So, so it's like, the next week, it could be Dallas could be in the 6th spot
Mhm.
next week, or Golden State could be out of the play-in, or so I think this is definitely something we gotta probably check in with every week for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I think most teams only have around 12 games left, give or take. I think that there's just some interesting conversation around the Rockets in general. Either way, it's a successful season for them.
Oh
They've
yeah.
won like 22 or less games, I think it is, for the last 3 years. So they're going to end up with, right around 500, give or take. So that's a really successful season for them. I was in the minority. I liked when they signed Fred VanVleet. I mean, the Dylan Brooks contract, they gave him way too much money, but I liked them adding some veterans around the young core of Jabari and Jalen Green and St.
Dylan Brooks has played solid this year.
Yeah, he hasn't been bad. He's just making way too much money. Sengun and then Amen Thompson now as well. But I think there's some interesting questions they're going to have to ask themselves moving forward. If we're just being honest about it, Sengun is my boy. If it wasn't for Tyrese Maxey this year, he would probably be the most improved player. But I don't really see a scenario where crazier things could happen. But um, Sengun and Jalen Green don't play very well together um, as of right now. And I know I've seen some fans go like, hey, the Rockets are so much better without Sengun because they've been on the, we didn't even mention it. They've been on this winning streak with Sengun out. And who knows if he's going to come back. If they're in the playoff race, they'll probably try to bring him back. But since he's been out, Jalen Green has been on a different level. I mean, over the last 5 games, he's averaging almost 35 points a game. I think he's averaging like 28 or so over this winning streak right now. And part of it, and I've been reading like some Rockets beat reporters articles. They watch the team every single night. And it seems to be the problem is that they can't figure out how to play offensively with Jalen Green and Sengun on the court at the same time. Like Sengun demands attention, but Jalen Green likes his spacing and likes to operate kind of with a lot of space, and Sengun doesn't necessarily always give him that. So the key to the Rocket, because they have, from a straight talent standpoint, I mean, they have some championship level young talent. Sengun and Jalen Green have the potential to be championship caliber players. I like Jabari Smith. I don't think he's like a superstar, but I think he's going to be a really, really solid player.
I think he definitely has the potential to be like a strong number 3.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's fair. But some people thought he was going to be like a superstar coming in the league. I don't personally see that.
I don't
But
see it. I mean, I like Jabari. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
I mean, he's only what, 20,
kind
I
of
think.
unfair. It's kind of unfair to say he's what 22 or something like.
I think he's only 20 or 21, but
20 or 21. It'd be kind of unfair for someone who's like shown improvement, over his rookie season to say, "Oh, that guy can't be a superstar."
oh, he could be. He just
But like I'm with you. I don't know if I necessarily see it, but he's that potential is definitely still there. I mean, you look at beyond Sengun and Jalen Green. I mean, you mentioned the VanVleet signing. Was a good signing for him. And I actually saw Sleeper had a notification. I don't know why they thought this was a notification. You could just look this information up anytime you want. But they had a list of like the top paid point guards in the league.
Oh yeah, I saw this too.
And like VanVleet was on there, with like 40 million or something. But so they definitely paid him a lot of money to come in, and I think they have. They're definitely building something here, and But at the same time, like you mentioned, they need to decide what direction to go in here. Because I mentioned it, mentioned it to you. They reportedly at the deadline offered Jalen Green and multiple first-round picks for Mikal Bridges from Brooklyn, and they were turned down. So, I don't know if I'd say that Jalen Green's going to be moved come the offseason. But if he is, this is only helping Houston. I think they can definitely get a real solid return if that's the direction they decide to go in. And build around Sengun and their other pieces. But, and this is just to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, if they do decide to go in this direction and move on from Jalen Green, given how well he's been playing lately without Sengun, wouldn't we count this as a bit of a knock on Sengun that he can't find a way to play with, a guy with it clearly as much the potential talent that Jalen Green has?
Yeah, I mean, the counter to that is, true, yes, that is true. I think the other side of it is that Sengun's never really had the chance to play without Jalen Green. So I guess in order to truly balance it, you would have to
Injure Jalen Green.
Yeah, it's just for scientific reasons. Jalen Green needs to be injured and Sengun needs to play by himself. But I do think it's interesting when you sent that to me, because I was already wanting to bring up the key to the Rockets' future is if Jalen Green and Sengun work together, and if they don't, do they just find another pairing or, trade Jalen Green for a bunch of picks or trade Sengun for a bunch of picks? But based off of them shopping him a little bit, that tells you that they'd rather build around Sengun than Jalen Green, right? That's what you would think. So I think that's kind of interesting, but maybe Jalen Green has figured something out. I mean, we had a bunch of questions last year too with the Timberwolves when Rudy Gobert and Cat and Anthony Edwards not really working offensively, and it just took them some time to figure out how to all work together. So I don't think it's impossible for these guys to figure it out, but they have to figure it out because the Rockets have an impressive mix of young upside. They have the veteran leadership now, because I didn't even mention Cam Whitmore, who's been really good in his rookie season at only 19. Tari Eason's been out for a long time, but was really good when he was healthy. So this team has crazy depth and star potential. So they have all the pieces to win a champion. I like Ime Udoka as a coach from what he's shown with the Rockets and then what he showed with the Celtics, he has a lot of potential to be really good. So I think they have all the pieces. It's just putting them all together or seeing if they fit together at all and moving on one way or another and deciding what. I think that they're going to try to make it work. How Jalen Green has looked recently, it's hard to move on from a guy with that much talent at 22 years old to be like, you know what, we're going to move on and find someone else, because 22-year-olds that are going to, average 35 points over a 10-game stretch don't grow on trees.
Yeah, and this thing, if you're the Rockets and you're saying, okay, this is the direction that we want to go, you're putting a lot of pressure on Sengun.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're basically saying you are the face of our franchise. We moved on from another possible face of the franchise in Jalen Green to build a team around you.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying that if they want to be competitive, which I think, what they've shown this season is that they're not that far off from being a very competitive team in the league, that Sengun can be the best player on a championship level team. That is, if you move on from Jalen Green, to me, that's what you are saying by doing that.
Yeah, and I think that he can, but if you have Jalen Green, reminds me a lot of Anthony Edwards, honestly, just in their playing style overall.
Oh, yeah.
So, Yeah, I mean, I just, after this stretch, I think it's going to reaffirm for them that, like, hey, we have to make this work. We have two guys that are 22 and younger.
I think Jalen Green can take the Anthony Edwards jump.
Oh, sure. I mean, I think he's showing that right now that he can. Is it out of the realm of possibility to say that the Rockets can be next season what the Thunder are this year?
Or if they find a way with the whole, especially now seeing what, and it's kind of unfortunate that it took Sengun being out for Jalen Green to kind of find this in him, but now they know. Now they know that they have a guy in Jalen Green, that they could build around these two guys if they can figure it out. And I think that's what this offseason is going to be about. I think that Jalen Green and Sengun are going to have to spend some time together in the offseason. I don't know, just, going out to dinner or, playing some mini golf or some bonding exercises or something, just something that's going to help them mesh together, because that's going to be the key. If they can mesh together, if Sengun and Jalen Green can mesh together as a team and lead this team, the Rockets can be a force. Like, they can make some real noise.
Oh, yeah. And the reason I think it's promising, too, is Jalen Green, similar to Anthony Edwards earlier in his career, their problem early on was that they are going, like, full force the whole time. And, like, you need to slow down and understand pacing sometimes in the NBA. And I think that Sengun, like, is that balance of pace. Like, he's more of, like, a half-court kind of player, where Jalen Green can lead fast breaks and he's go, 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 like, he's just on speed all the time. But Anthony Edwards, you see now, like, plays with amazing pace. He's figured out that balance. And I think for whatever reason, Sengun was forcing Jalen Green to play balance and he wasn't ready for it. But interestingly enough, if you read just kind of the scouting report on how Jalen Green has been playing, he's been playing with more pace and has slowed himself down since Sengun has been out, which is really weird, and it sounds like almost a mental block in some way. But so he's shown the ability now, like, he can do it. He just now has to do it when Sengun is on the court. So, yeah, it'll be a fun dynamic. I mean, the Rockets, for me, a no-brainer playoff team next year, and I think they have that potential to take a leap of being a top 5 team in the conference next year, which maybe some people would say is bold, but it really shouldn't be at this point. It's just been confirmed with this winning streak, in my opinion. So I'm glad we got to spend some time talking about the Rockets, because we disrespected, and not we, you disrespected them last week by not wanting to talk about them as play-in contenders, but we got to give them their spotlight.
Yeah. Oh, and I was gonna look at I don't know how much longer Sengun's supposed to be out, but I search Alper and Sengun, and the first news article that pops up says Bill Simmons shockingly suggests shopping Alper and Sengun in trade talks. Wow. So that's just, I'm not even gonna click that article. That just sounds.
That's clickbait right there. That's a definition.
Now, I like Jalen Green, but if I'm gun to my head and I'm forced to trade one of them, I'm probably trading Jalen Green.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like great about it, but if I was forced to trade one,
yeah, you have to. Yeah.
So it looks like he is. I mean, the reports were that he is supposed to miss the rest of the regular season. So, if they make the play-in, does that pass? I don't know, if that. I think back when, because this is before they went on their unexpected run that they were on. If they end up making the play-in, does that change the timetable, does Sengun have a possibility? I'm sure now they're probably having discussions or at least thinking about, is it a possibility? But I mean, I heard grade 3 ankle injury, which isn't great. It's gonna be quite difficult for him to come back from. But I think it might almost serve them better to ride this out.
I know. Yeah.
Let Sengun sit. Don't even if he has any slight possibility of coming back, let Sengun sit. It really would give Jalen Green a chance. I mean, not that he needs to prove anymore at this point. He's kind of been the spearhead for why they went on this streak. But if they make the plan and make some noise, I think that would only further, his case of, they gotta make this work together.
Yeah, it is a weird dynamic because I think originally people were like, yeah, they're going to have nothing to play for. Like, he's going to miss the rest of the season. Like, if they're not in the playoff race, why rush him back? But now they're in a weird situation where it's like, well, we want our best player to be on the court, but we're playing well without him. So do we want him? I don't know. That's a weird situation. I lean towards, because this is just valuable playoff level experience, which I think goes a long way if they want to build a championship contender. They're not going to win the championship this year. They'll be lucky if they make it out of the play-in tournament. So if he can play some meaningful playoff level games, I think that's good experience whether they win or lose. So me personally, I would just err on the side of if he's healthy enough to play him and let him experience that playoff atmosphere and playoff basketball, because that's only going to help moving forward.
Yeah, and I think it's just gonna be a wait and see approach with them. I also, the end of the show, I am very happy that we able to come I was at least able to come full circle with talking about Houston. This is a big growing moment for me. But seeing, first of all, I didn't at the time. I believe last week they were won like 5 or something in a row when we talked last week or something.
Yeah, something like
I
that.
honestly expected them to lose at some point this week. Like, it wasn't really.
And here we are.
So, but here we are, and they have another winnable game tonight versus Portland. But I'll tell you what, though, if we're having this discussion next week, and the Rockets still haven't lost, even though they have a couple of difficult games coming up, I mean, that's gonna be a whole new discussion with them next week.
They can't get their own segment 2 weeks in a row, though, so that's unacceptable.
Because just to end it quick, what do they have? So what do they have between now and next week? After they play, they have the 27th. They have a game. They're at the Thunder. They're at the Thunder. Yeah, they're at the Thunder. They're at the Jazz, and they host Dallas this week.
Yeah, and they play Portland
they beat
tonight.
The Thunder and Dallas, and we're talking next week when they've won. They're sitting at 11 or 12 in a row. I mean, they're gonna get talked about again.
2 weeks in a row. That's unacceptable.
So.
Cool. Okay. I think that's it then. We had plenty to talk about, and we actually, after this, only have 2 more episodes before the playoffs start. And in 3 episodes from now, we will have playoff basketball to discuss. So We'll keep tabs on this playoff race, so this definitely won't be the last time we talk about the Rockets, whether or not we like it. Even though, as we're recording, they're losing by 10 to the Trailblazers in the first quarter. So we say all these nice things, and then their winning streak ends against the Trailblazers. So maybe we'll have nothing nice to say next week. But yeah, that's it. We'll keep tabs on everything going on as we move closer to the playoff race, and we'll see you guys next time.